Let me just start by wishing you all a good evening. I welcome all the citizens, dignitaries, and staff present. Your presence is greatly appreciated. Tonight I'm happy to report the state of the city of Hughson is strong. In fact, at no point has the community and municipality of Hughson in its long history ever been better equipped to meet the challenges and utilize the opportunities that lie ahead. The city of Hughson's expanded organizational capacity and rock-solid fiscal condition are the result of multi-year commitment to conservative budgeting practices, a culture of collaboration, and thinking proactively as we adopt policies and set priorities. Tonight I will provide a financial overview focusing on the health of our general fund, discuss recent economic development successes, and we also hear from our city manager, Raul Mendez, who will discuss various partnerships that the city has forged in addition to some of our fiscal strategies. Our community development director, Jalen French, will update us on a variety of issues related to planning and infrastructure. And I think I forgot my pointer. Thank you. Excellent staff here. So this is the items we talked about. Last month, at the end of January, we accepted our city audit. And in that city audit, we had some really encouraging news, really in particular to our general fund. And I wanted to focus on our general fund because of all our different funds, this really is a way for citizens to really zero in and understand the overall fiscal health of our city. Our general fund is where we pay for police and is where we have a lot of our discretionary funds versus our enterprise funds, which are our sewer and water. What we found in this audit was that our general fund revenue was $570,737 higher than the previous fiscal year. Now that's roughly a 30% jump in one fiscal year. That's really a very positive sign and definitely encouraging. But even though revenues have gone up, we've been able to keep expenditures relatively low. Expenditures only went up $65,373 compared to the prior year. And really what that does is that our general fund balance has increased $713 from the prior year fund balance. Like I said, that is extremely compelling and significant. Just didn't want to spend a lot of time on the different sources of revenue, but taxes, charges for services, capital grants, contributions. What's interesting is charges for services is over $2 million, and that's really where we get a lot of our funds. A lot of our funds are generated locally. Functional expenses. What I wanted to highlight in this, we're of that expenditure, we're up $1.3 million for our sheriff's department, and that's been a very successful relationship and really quite cost effective for our city. How we got to this point, when I talk about budgeting conservatively, to be captain obvious here, you want to underestimate revenues and overestimate expenditures. And this is some audited financials from the previous fiscal year, which definitely show. We just drop down to the bottom line. We underestimated revenues by $454,000 and overestimated expenditures by $258,000 roughly. And ever since I've been mayor and ever since I've been on the council, we've done that every year. And we've been very consistent in that manner. And over a period of years, we've gotten to a point now where our reserve fund for our general fund, so think of it as a rainy day fund. Our rainy day fund almost equals 100% of our total general fund amount. So what that means is we could operate for an entire fiscal year without additional revenue coming in. It's a really big deal for our city. Most cities happy to operate at the range 7%, 10%, and to be operating at 100% is really an excellent indicator of how our city is being run. Okay, now we want to pivot to economic development. Economic development has been a real priority for our council and for staff. And really one strong indication of that is the Dollar General. Now I know a lot of people think Dollar General, every city has a Dollar General. What's the big deal about Dollar General? Well, what's significant is really how Hughson did it. A lot of Dollar General, like I said, there's a Dollar General in almost every city in the county. And a lot of those Dollar Generals are on the outside of the town, kind of locating in the path of least resistance. But the council made it a priority to staff that we want our Dollar General in our downtown. And from the beginning, that was somewhat problematic. We had two different parcels. We had some right-of-way issues. There was some complexity, but staff did a great job of making that happen. I really commend especially Jalen French, did an awesome job with that. And not only did we work in getting in our downtown, we worked with Dollar General to do some off-site improvements. They put in about $300,000 worth of off-site improvements in the bulb outs and things like that in the intersection, and really have dramatically enhanced our downtown. And it really was a successful outcome, in my opinion. And we're also continuing with the business assistance programs. This is something we'll be doing now. I think we're going in our third year of doing this. And what that does, we set aside $35,000 every year, and we can give that to the business in the form of grant, loans, for facade improvement, for capital, equipment purchases, inventory purchases, things like that. And this is just some examples of companies that we've worked with: Perks Coffee, Santa Fe Burgers and Hot Dogs, Magnolia Farmhouse Market, Kids First Learning Center, and The Good Life. And notice too, all these are in our downtown. Downtown has absolutely been a priority of this council, and that continues even now. And also, a lot of people know this, we have a small business incubator. When the economy was going booming and everyone was hiring lots of staff, we built a new building. And then unfortunately, when the economy declined, we had to cut a lot of staff. We had this empty building. And to utilize and get some revenue off of that, we said, well, maybe we'll try and create a small business incubator there. And I'm happy to report that today, that incubator is full. And the current tenant is Hughson Compliance. They do winery compliance work. It's a great story, local story. And that's worth emphasizing too. All these, the business assistance programs, the incubator, these are all local people, local businesses that we're encouraging, starting new businesses, and it's really rewarding to see that. Again, emphasis on the downtown. The Hughson Fruit Nest Festival has been going on for a long time in this community. But from the city's perspective, we really try to support that as much as we can because it pulls people to our downtown. And we've really had an excellent relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, and they've spearheaded this effort, and they've been raising a lot of money that stays locally also. And it's going to be a lot of the amenities are going to be the same this year, but the date is going to be different. We've been having it in the fall. This year it's going to be April 30th through May 1st. And actually, technically, we are changing the name of the Fruit Nest Festival back as the old name from the Harvest Festival. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm also happy to report we're going to be having the farmers market for the second year in a row. We had it last year. Really last year, the way I looked at it was almost kind of a soft opening for the city. We tried it. We partnered with the East Stanislaus Resource Conservation District. They were a huge help to us. Essentially what they did is they acted as the market manager for us because we had no experience with managing a farmer's market. And they came in and really set up the infrastructure and made that happen for us in a very short period of time. They came in, I think it was 6 weeks. It was something. It was really amazing. They were able to pull it out in such a quick manner. And we had the market. We had good turnout. I think we had some hot weather during that, which discouraged some attendance. From my perspective, probably the biggest mistake we made last year was having an alternate market every other week. And we thought the reason why we did that initially is we wanted to ensure that the vendors would have adequate people coming, and weren't sure, given a small town, if we could sustain a weekly market. The net result, I think, is having it every other week discouraged attendance because people didn't know if the market was going on, and there was some confusion with that. So this year we're going to have it every week. We hired a new market manager, Peter Cipineri. Peter is definitely a go-getter, and if you've ever met him, they managed a farmer's market in Carmel and has some great experience with that. And the one thing that guy does is have his energy and ideas. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And like I said, the goal is to grow the market. We want to draw people to our downtown. And if there's one thing I want to emphasize about the market too, is that right now the city's sponsoring this. We're trying to get this going. But ultimately, this market needs to belong to the people. We want this market to exist to facilitate people socializing, coming out on a Thursday night. I'd love to see the Historical Society continue to be open. We want to see FFA have a booth there. Nonprofits, set up a stand. I mean, this is for the people. This is not something that is going to be on a short string by the city by any means. And ultimately, we'll know when it's successful, when the community is really taking ownership for themselves of the market. Also, in this upcoming year, we're going to be doing a lot of work with technology. We're going to be upgrading our financial management system. It's crazy how expensive they are to update these things. And so we've been saving for a long time on that. And finally, this will be the year that we'll get to implement that. And I think that's going to be, bring some really positive changes to our city. Ultimately, I think, obviously there's an efficiency aspect to it, but I really want our financial management to be utilized in a manner that empowers our employees, really facilitates communication, access to information, allows us to, as a council to get, financial information on a very timely basis. This previous year, council did a good job and staff did a good job on Facebook and Nextdoor, and I think we can, do that even more. That is something that is just really untapped, even though we're doing some of it. We can do a lot more of that. And if you haven't liked us on Facebook, please do it. And if you haven't gone Nextdoor, you need to do it. Nextdoor is, I've talked about it in my last State of the City address. It's phenomenal. It's a closed network. It's a great tool to communicate with your neighbors. We're also going to be updating our website. Website is functional, but it's becoming a little outdated. And we're going to be spending some money on that this year also. And, the thing about the website, too, is that the way I look at this is, you want to, it's not an aesthetic thing. It's really, you can, as a city, say you're for transparency, you're for accountability, you want to incorporate the public if your technology does not reflect that. And that's why we really need to update our website. We need to be able to have the public access agendas, access packets. We're looking at ways we can start streaming meetings. So you can, really bring the public in through the utilization of technology. And that's really how you integrate technology into municipal governance. So now I'm going to hand over the mic to Raul Mendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we'll kind of give you a handoff here. I'll go ahead and turn on my receptor here. And then maybe ask the mayor to, I think, put his on mute is what we were instructed by our videotaping.
This thing right here?
Yes. Go ahead. Good evening, everyone. Raul Mendez. I've been the city manager here in Hughson for coming on 3 years. And maybe just before I get started with my comments regarding some of the financial strategies that we've implemented, talk about some of the partnerships. One of the things that I can say is, since my arrival back in June of 2013, is we're basically continuing the path that my predecessor and this council that actually has been here for some time has set us on. And it's just, during the time, going back to a couple years before I came to Hughson, this council was faced with some very difficult decisions, having to make some reductions in not only the way they went about providing business services to the community, but also looking at City Hall and seeing how we can make adjustments to our budgets to be able to be sustainable through what was the most difficult time, at least in recent history, that with our economy and this community went through. And upon my arrival, it was kind of part of the process was restoring some of the things that were essentially put on the back burner because of necessity. We've continued that. A lot of the successes that the mayor talked about this evening are as a result of some of those tough decisions that were made. And what I'd like to do now is just kind of take you through a couple slides that speaks to some of the areas of focus for us as a city as we go forward. Again, reminding you that we're only able to do that because of where our path, where the history took us and some of the decisions made in the path. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we, working with the City Council, have begun exploring, again, for the purpose of improving the fiscal condition of the city. And so some of these strategies are maybe very obvious, but something that needs to be revisited time and time again whenever you're a municipality the size of Hughson. Obviously, we're the smallest city in Stanislaus County of the 9 cities. We have to find creative and strategic ways of delivering services to the residents we serve. The first was essentially looking at our investment portfolio through the help of our finance director, Shannon Esselwine, who's sitting up here in the front. We were able to kind of take the council through a journey of looking at our investment portfolio, some of the things that we were currently doing, and revisiting those to make sure that we were maximizing, obviously, the public dollars that we had in our reserves. And so this slide talks about some of the specifics of our investment portfolio. About $2.5 million are in what we call investments. We have an opportunity, obviously, as a municipality to invest these dollars in certain ways, and these are some of the tools that we typically use. There's the account interest rate money market accounts that produce the 0.08% return. There's LAVE, which is very common for municipalities. You see those interest rates are probably not what they were some time ago, and hence it's very important that we continue to kind of examine and making sure that we stretch the dollar as best as we can. CDs are essentially a strategy that we've implemented and have continued to implement going forward because they obviously produce the greatest return on investment. Some of the things that our city focuses on is making sure that our investments meet these primary objectives that were established by our city council. Objectives which are safety, liquidity, and obviously the return on investment. It's important for a municipality to continue to have this conversation very actively. And so that was one strategy that we began here this last year. I want to also talk to you a little bit about some of the other strategies that we've implemented over the course of the last several years. And like most municipalities, the way we fund projects is usually through loans, either through state or other sources of funds. Federal is another example. And this is basically a chart that shows you the debt service that the city of Hughson currently has. And I want to take you through some of the items that we've been able to kind of explore with the council these last couple of years. Most of you are familiar with redevelopment, or what was formerly known as redevelopment. Hughson was actually one of the newer agencies in this county that implemented and instituted a redevelopment agency. As a result of the work of the Hughson Redevelopment Agency, we were able to make some improvements to our downtown. And as a result of that, there was some debt service that was established because of that. One of the things that we've been able to do is look at debt service and look at how we can restructure the debt at a lower interest rate to make sure that, again, we're maximizing opportunities when they present themselves. In the last year, actually this past year, 2015, we were able to restructure basically the redevelopment bond that the Hughson Redevelopment Agency put in place to do projects at a lower interest rate through the help and assistance of Urban Futures. What that means in terms of dollar amount, essentially savings of about almost $400,000 in interest savings over the course of the RDA bond term. That's one example. Water tank loan, this is another opportunity that was instituted back in 2014 where essentially we went through the same process. We're able to restructure our debt service there, resulting in about $150,000 in interest savings. The USDA water loan, this was actually not something that's yet been implemented, but something that we're pursuing and exploring. If we're able to basically pay this debt in its entirety, there will be an interest savings of $220,000. The council has actually directed us to take a look at this at the end of the fiscal year to make sure that we have kind of a mechanism for paying down that debt. In order to be able to do that, our city finance director was asked to bring forth an interfund loan policy that will allow us to do that using different sources of funding in our city portfolio. Another example, this was done back in 2013, wastewater treatment plant expansion loan that was secured, was refinanced in 2013, interest savings about $367,000. So before I get to that big one, just as a whole, about $1 million in interest savings that has or is in the process of materializing, just as a part of the work that the city is doing in concert with the city council. And this is just an example of one way that we make sure that our resources are stretched to the fullest and that we're being fiscally responsible when it comes to our debt service. Now, we continue to look for ways to decrease that 1% interest rate, but that's actually a pretty good interest rate. This is for our new wastewater treatment plant facility that's located off of Leadham Road. If you live in the community, you know that this is a pretty state-of-the-art facility. That's the debt service that's currently there, but that's actually a fairly good loan package and interest rate. That's an example of some of the work that we've been doing with our debt service. Other revenue-generating opportunities. We like to look at everything that we do holistically. We do own property near and around the wastewater treatment facility, and what we've been able to do is look for ways to reuse and maybe lease out our property so that there's some revenue generated as part of that process. This last year, we were able to enter into a long-term farming lease agreement with Michael and Noller for about 12 acres of property there along Leadham Road. 25-year lease. As part of the terms and conditions of that arrangement, there is some orchard development that will be taking place, basically replanting a 1975 section of orchard that's there at the property. The percentage rent that's received is about 20% of the gross proceeds. We're also looking at creative ways of reusing property. We do have about 35 acres of property also across the street on Leadham Road, and we're actually in the process of doing a phase 2 environmental to better determine what our options are. Again, the goal here is to maybe develop opportunities for generating revenue, additional revenue, to assist our fiscal condition. And then, as you all know, we have quite a few city facilities, and it's just about looking how we currently manage those facilities. How can we get more out of those facilities? Whether there are buildings, the mayor talked about our incubation center, whether they're parks, looking how we can better make our parks attractive for rentals, or wastewater treatment plant, looking how we can maximize facilities that are currently in place. Another component that we're looking at is also our utility billing collection system. We like to think that everybody pays their utility bill, but there are residents, obviously, that maybe struggle because of what's happening. And so looking at ways that we can collect some of those payments that maybe are delinquent. And we've had some recent success through some of the strategies we've been doing. So I want to talk about partnerships, and probably the best thing I can do here is just kind of look around this room. I know we didn't do introductions, but if I were to do introductions of the members of the community that are here, the partners that are here, we have several agencies that are represented. And I'm just going to go maybe from right to left. We have members from our Planning Commission. We have our faith-based organizations, our Parks and Rec Commission, our Sheriff's Department, our Family Resource Centers, our historical societies, our federal and state partners, representatives, our Business Alliance. I mean, I can probably go on and on and on, and there are a lot of partners. Our Hughson Fire District is represented this evening. Our League of California Cities representative, our obviously faith-based organization. I know, Tim, you wear multiple hats, Resource Center and Advisory Board, and most of the folks that are in this room, if you're here in Hughson, you probably wear multiple hats because that's just the way we do things out here. And it works very well for us, and we're able to really take this community to the next level through those relationships and those partnerships. And we wouldn't be able to do it any other way. The mayor talked strongly about some of the positive things that are happening here. One of the reasons we can do some of those positive things is because we're able to work very effectively with our partners. And I look out into the audience, and some of you are represented here. Some of you are represented up there as well on the slide. We're looking for ways to better engage our business community. I think Jalen, myself, the mayor, and members of the council and staff take a lot of pride in bringing City Hall to you, as I like to say, rather than expecting business owners to come to us. And so it's all about kind of that two-way street, having active communication, better understanding what their needs are, bringing to them opportunities when they're presented to us as a city, and that's something that we definitely take a lot of pride in, building and fostering those relationships. The mentoring program is an example of a partnership between Sierra Vista Children and Family Services, the City of Hughson, and obviously our key partner, the Hughson School District. And we're in our first year. We launched in January of this year, and we have 10 mentors. It's going going well. It's modeled after the county program, which has been very successful for nearly, I think, 20 years, getting close to that. And it's really about serving our community in a very unique way in the classroom. It's mentors go into a third grade classroom. They have a mentee, a little third grader, and there's a bond that happens from day one. That's something that we as a city support fully, obviously in partnership with the district, and Sierra Vista provides kind of the support and the training for us. And I know some of you are involved in the mentoring program. I appreciate your efforts in that regard. Another partnership with the school district is our sports and fitness complex. If you haven't been there yet, where am I? I think it's that way. Just across the street on Locust. It's a beautiful facility. Obviously, in having a small city, we have limited recreational facilities, so anytime we can work with another partner to develop and grow a facility, that's what we do. Superintendent Beck, the steering committee that supports the sports and fitness complex, has been meeting with Councilmember Carr and myself basically on a monthly basis, and it's all about making the facility better than it already is, and it already is very nice. So that's another, an example. A project that was obviously spearheaded by our local fire district. The Hughson AED project has successfully been implemented. I think if you look at most public facilities in the city of Hughson, they have the AED equipment. It's compatible with what our local fire, our ambulance company, our local public safety officials need, and we are better able to serve our community as a result of that infrastructure that's in our public facilities. Our resource center, obviously leading edge of services and the services that they provide, but it's the Hughson way to not always just be satisfied with what's happening here, but what's happening in the larger area, regional area, doing a lot of great work, working with the resource center and expanding services to other communities. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in because I know this community is leading the charge for that. They're in the process of establishing a resource center in Waterford. I know there's already a connection to some of the other communities, Hickman and Empire and Denair, and it's just, again, being led by your local resource center here. Lisa Root, where are you? There you are, our administrator, has been doing fabulous work for the last, how long have you been with us now, Lisa?
March 30th.
Almost a year, and time flies, but it's all fun because we're doing great work. The Citizens for a Healthy Community, I look out into the audience again and I see my friends from the Citizens for a Healthy Community that makes possible some of the activities and events that happen throughout the year. I got to plug, obviously, Love Hughson, April 23rd. If you're not already scheduled to support or be part of a project, put it on your calendar. We have a concert series that we started actually 2 years ago, so we're looking to bring that back again in a new and exciting way. National Night Out, first Tuesday in August. Look to our local law enforcement, obviously our fire protection services to assist us with that process. And it's just, there's a lot of good things happening here. This is just maybe a snapshot. I can probably talk about Hughson for hours and hours, and some of you have heard me talk about Hughson, but it's really what it's all about is working with the partners, businesses, to better serve basically the residents, the people that we're privileged to have the opportunity to serve on a day-to-day basis. And it can range from helping somebody, community member, find their lost cat that's posted on Nextdoor, to trying to help somebody that's come to the resource center and maybe has a specific need that they need some assistance with. And the nice thing about Hughson is it's very easy to kind of connect the dots. Very easy to pick up the phone, make a phone call, and get that individual, that person, the assistance that they need. And then it's a two-way street. We like to say that obviously we're there to serve, but we're also very willing to have you come and help us with some of the work that we're doing. So at this point, I'm going to segue to my community development director, Jalen French. He's already one step ahead of me, and give us a second while we.
As Raul mentioned, my name is Jalen French. I'm the Community Development Director for the city. Community development in this case encompasses planning, public works, building, code enforcement, economic development sometimes. So what Raul was talking about, wearing multiple hats, we all do it. One of the main themes of this presentation as outlined by the mayor is potential and possibilities. And that really fits well with a goal of the Community Development Department, which is really to help improve this wonderful community every day, improve it today, and then also plan for the future, plan for tomorrow. And that's really what we try to do in community development. And so kind of talk about some of the things that we do on the day-to-day basis for the existing community, for the streets we have, the houses we have, the businesses we have right now. Sidewalk infill projects, it's been a huge goal of ours. We've recently done Pine Street, 4th Street, 5th Street. We will in the future do Fox. We received a grant. It's very important to have sidewalks where there aren't sidewalks right now. This is the things that we are doing to improve the community today. Roadway rehab projects, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but 2 of the worst roads in the city have recently been completed. Tully Road and Hughson Avenue right in front of the high school. These are projects that we're checking off their list, saving up, planning for the future. Downtown improvements. The mayor touched on the improvements that were done as part of Dollar General. That's staff's new philosophy. When a project comes in, we need to be touching the downtown in the area where that project is. Not just letting a building come in, but trying to improve our downtown as part of that project. That's been key, and downtown has been a focus. A corridor study. What's a corridor study? People drive in Santa Fe, drive in on Hatch, not very aesthetically pleasing. This is a first impression of our community to people. So we can potentially do a corridor study where we unify the look of Hatch, Whitmore, Santa Fe, Hughson Avenue, and we beautify it. We turn that potential negative image into a positive image. We put a bicycle pedestrian path on the canal on Hatch. We turn the oleanders into something on Santa Fe and really make it a nice part of the town. We talk about entry monumentation. A lot of people, I'm sure, drive through Santa Fe and don't really know where they are. Are they in Empire? Are they in Hughson? We put some entry monumentation to let everyone know you're in Hughson. This is Hughson. It's a nice place to stop. Go downtown, hit the shops, coffee. These are the goals of Community Development Department. Code enforcement, neighborhood preservation, also a big part of today. We do have some older parts of town. We have some parts that aren't being kept up by some of the residents. These are things that we can address. Cars in front yards, garbage. These are the things that we can address immediately. Try to proactively address these things to improve the neighborhood. Basketball court in Starn Park. Right now, we don't have a publicly accessible outdoor basketball court. Through work with the Parks and Rec Commission, we're looking at installing one in the existing Starn Park. So just again, looking for new amenities for the residents that aren't currently existing. So that's today. What can we do tomorrow? Some people do not like to hear this, especially in Hughson, but growth will occur. We want to be out in front of that growth. We want to do it on our terms, not on a developer's terms who comes in and says, I want to put X on 100 acres, and we're reacting to that. We want to get out in front of it. That's why the city is proposing a city-initiated annexation in the southern part of the city, which will help really balance the city. If you all know the city, all the growth has been in the northern part. So this would help balance the city. Again, bring the focus of the town on the downtown. That will now continue to be the core of the city, and we won't just keep growing in one direction. So with that annexation, we would go as far as potentially preparing the specific plan ourselves. Again, being out in front of this development, not being reactive to something that comes down our way. Downtown capacity for future desired businesses. That's a mouthful, but when I got here about a year and a half ago, it was supermarket, supermarket, supermarket. We need a supermarket in town. You look at the parcels in downtown, there's not a lot of large parcels for a supermarket. And the mayor touched on the Dollar General. You know, we had to be creative to get a Dollar General in town. It was 9,000 square feet, but we compiled 3 or 4 parcels together to get that in the middle of our downtown. And that's the kind of attitude that staff is taking with a grocery store that could maybe be 15,000 square feet. Where can we compile parcels to make a large enough parcel to get something that is truly needed in the city? Improvements to the city's industrial area, jobs, housing balance, right? We want more jobs. It's not bad, but we don't necessarily want to just be a bedroom community to the larger cities. Jobs is great. A robust, diverse economy can only help. So we'll be making some, hopefully growing and making some improvements to our industrial area on the other side of the railroad tracks, on the west side of the tracks. Increased, enhance, and improve parks. Both the mayor and city manager have touched on this. But in the annexation area in the southern part of the city, which is the council was looking at a 20-acre parcel down there, ended up deciding it was, you know, maybe too much, more than we could take on at this time. But as part of the annexation, we could put in a community park, maybe 10, 15 acres, something maybe more manageable for the city at this time. And recreational opportunities. And then redevelopment. So not just focusing on the new, not just focusing on you know, what we will grow, where we will grow, but also redeveloping the downtown, redeveloping some of the older neighborhoods, you know, making every part of the city wonderful and beautiful. So we talk about infrastructure, another thing that we do, and the city of Hughson has the nicest roads in town. That's the truth. Did a survey, StanCog, our partners, did a survey of all the roads in the county, and our PCR, our pavement condition index, is 15, maybe 10, 15 points higher than anyone else in the county. This is an area of pride for us, and we want to stay out in front of that. Roadway improvements are much more costly when that pavement condition index begins to lower. So if we stay in front of it, if we make less costly improvements more frequently, we don't have to make those very costly, very time-consuming improvements down the road. So this is something we try to stay in front of. I mentioned Tully Road and Hughson Avenue. Again, largely considered the 2 worst roadways in the city. Those have been addressed. Tully Road, not 100%. We're still working with PG&E on that last little bit at the corner there of Whitmore, but we will finalize that. And then in the future, working very closely with the county on a signal and a widening of the Hatch and Santa Fe intersection. This will be a great benefit for those of us who have been stuck in that traffic on Santa Fe and Hatch. It can get bad at times. It can get very bad. So this will be a congestion reliever. I think I touched on Fox Road, but there's an area in Fox Road on the southern side that does not have sidewalks. Many children walk this road every day to school. This will make, and this was a grant we received, a $400,000 grant we received from the state for safe routes to school. This will make that path safer, more accessible for children to walk to school. There's 3 schools on that roadway. And then Whitmore Avenue, we talk about safety. There are no sidewalks across the tracks, and now there are businesses, there are other things on the other side of the tracks, the west side of the tracks connecting into downtown, but there's no sidewalk. I've witnessed several times people pushing, you know, ladies pushing strollers, walking, wheelchairs, you know, trying to get across those tracks. So staff has devised a project, again using some StanCog monies, to put in some sidewalks across that stretch of the railroad tracks there on Whitmore Avenue. We talk a lot about roadways. This is very important, and maybe with this I'll turn it over to the mayor, but there is a very big vote, and I won't tell you which way to vote, but a very big vote coming up on the transportation sales tax measure, which is very necessary. No one likes to get stuck in traffic, no one likes to have bumpy roads, but it's also about businesses, not just for Hughson, but businesses in Turlock, Modesto, those help the Hughson area too. So it is a very big vote in November, and with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor. You can have that one, either one.
Yeah, I pretty much feel like a wet cat when you talk about raising taxes. It's a tough one. It really is, you know, but one of the criteria I always look at, you know, what is the economic impact? And I think there's a lot to be learned, especially in our county, from other cities, larger cities, that are struggling, literally struggling with their roads right now. Nothing against Turlock, but Turlock, I think their PCI is 64. You know, and what ends up happening in all of these cases is that the roads become an unfunded liability. So they can't afford to maintain their roads. The roads deteriorate even more. They become more expensive to fix. And it's something you have to get ahead of. If you don't get ahead of it, then you're cross-subsidizing your roads with your general fund. Your ability to pay for police, things like that are all diminished. And so, you know, I would encourage everyone to support the sales tax measure for the roads this November. Encourage the council, all electeds, to really push this. This is something that really impacts the fiscal. You know, there's a severe fiscal impact to our county, to our cities, and it's something that frankly also impacts our business climate. The ability to move product is so essential to our county, and being a self-help county is the game in California. That is the reality that we have to deal with. If we want to get funding from the state of California, we have to have matching funds. It's really that simple. So we can either sit on the sidelines and watch other counties continue to improve their roads, draw business to the county, increase jobs, or step up the plate and take ownership of this. And that's really what we have to do. I always forget the clicker. All right. I do this with a heavy heart. Dominique is such an asset to our staff. I've worked with her in a variety of capacities, going back to when I was a planning commissioner. And during her time here, she has been through thick and thin. She's really the glue that has kept this city afloat for a long time. And I just think it's really important that we recognize her efforts, recognize what you mean to the council, what you mean to the staff, and what you mean to the community. You really have done an excellent job, and we wish you nothing but the best. So with that, you get the wonderful plaque, and of course, you got to have the Bella Viva.
Yeah, thank you.
You got to have the Bella Viva.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come and visit, please. I need my clicker, man. It's like having the remote. Just gotta have it in my hand. My kids will change the channel on me. So, in closing, what we really try to lay out for you tonight is really a template. You know, conservative fiscal management, having a good business climate, culture of collaboration. You know, working well with partners in our community, and thinking proactively. You know, thinking long term about planning. You know, this is really the formula for success for Hughson. It's something that, you know, we're sticking to right now and really need to adhere to in the long run. You would have to be tone deaf to, you know, watch all the presidential debates, talk to people. There's tremendous frustration with government right now. And frankly, a lot of it rightly so. You know, you look at how the federal government, Sacramento, manages money. They spend more money than they take in. You know, and I don't want to start ranting here, but you know, we have in a lot of cases, government co-opted by special interest. And I really want the people of Hughson to know that in Hughson, that's not the case. We have a government that spends its money well. We have a government that's accountable to our constituency. We always put the people first. And that's something from the entire council, it's something from the entire staff, you know, from our landscaping down to our city manager. We really put our residents first and foremost in every decision we make. And it's something I'm incredibly proud of. And I just want to thank all the residents in Hughson for the opportunity to be mayor. I want to thank the council for serving with them. It's a real pleasure to serve with these gentlemen and the two other members. true professionals, very ethical people. We have a tremendous staff. I really feel that Hughson is hitting stride. You really have to believe that. You know, it's blossoming to a degree that I have not seen. I've been involved at some level almost 13 years now, and I'm just incredibly proud of what our community is doing, and I just really think it's important that all the residents know that. So thank you very much for coming. That concludes our State of the City address.